Been learning something so far. You got some energy. You're gonna go back out and share what you've been learning. I hope so far. And we're gonna talk to you a little bit more tonight about some things that you've been learning, and we're gonna get some homework assignments. So we heard this was a smart group, very smart. Everybody didn't tell them. We're warning. This is a smart group. So we have to get a smart people homework, and then that sharpens your mind a little bit even more. But no, welcome tonight. My name is Ham, and this is my wife. As you all know, I'm one of Noah's sons, one of his three sons. And me and my wife ended up on the ark after my father and my mother were commanded by God to build the ark and to also gather animals, and me and my brothers and our wives. So tonight we're going to talk a little bit about what happened during the time of the flood. I know everybody in this room probably remembers a little bit about what happened during Hurricane Katrina. Anybody in the room remember the images that you saw on TV during Hurricane Katrina? What did you see? Devastation.
People sitting on top of roofs.
So a lot of water everywhere. How deep do you guys think that water was during Hurricane Katrina? How deep? Just again. How many? 20 feet deep? Some people said. Maybe everybody in agreement with that, or some people think it's deep? 20 feet deep? Okay, what else did you see when you looked at the images on TV? Death. People floating in the water. Were there any animals killed? Animals floating in the water. Buildings destroyed, right? Rooftops. Some things underwater. And I would say that's probably the worst flood I can remember in my lifetime. Anybody know of any floods worse than that? Okay, and lots of people lost their lives, lots of animals lost their lives. And we are estimating the water was probably 20 feet deep. Okay, was there water everywhere? No, it really around
It's just in
Lake
one area.
Pontchartrain and in certain areas of New Orleans. But not really, I mean, it was really limited to a certain part of where the lake, breached and the low areas flooded. But it wasn't everywhere. And a lot of lives were lost, a lot of property lost, and including human life. And that was a pretty bad flood, right? But it was nothing in comparison to the great flood that we're going to talk about tonight.
Rain began and lasted 40 days and 40 nights. In addition, springs burst forth under the oceans, pouring in more water. The water was so deep it covered the tops of mountains by 20 feet.
So let's talk about that a little bit. We just said Hurricane Katrina, which is the worst flood we've all seen in our lifetime. We guessed that water was 20 feet deep. Okay, think about, again, the water being at the top of the Family Life Center there as one perspective point, then the top of the steeple on the church, and then just keep going higher, because we've all traveled around North Carolina, other states, and we've been through the mountains. And it was 20 feet higher than the tallest mountains. So as far as you could see, in every direction, there was water. Not like Katrina, where there was a lot of water, but it was in a defined area. And it was 20 feet versus taller than the tallest mountain. So again, I think it's important to have that perspective as you think about the magnitude of this flood. And the water was not just coming from the rain coming down, but from these springs that fed lakes and the ocean that came from under the ground. So the water rose at a tremendous rate and flooded all the earth.
The ark drifted for 150 days. God sent a wind Then for 150 days, the water steadily went down.
Okay, so think about this now. We're all in a representation of the ark right now. Everybody's comfortable. You just been here for a few minutes. But just think about being on the ark for a week. And you don't have a lot of space. Okay, the animals are confined to a small space. And we know when animals are confined to a small space, they do okay for a little while. But we're talking about a week, and then a month, and then they talked about the ark floating on the water, drifting. Again, no motor, because it didn't have it was all under God's control. Okay, no motor, drifting on the water for 150 days. How many months is that? The 150 days it drifted. How many months? 5 months of just the drifting. And then additional time when the water receded before the ark was back on, resting on the mountains. So, again, now after 5 months, how do you think the ark smelled? Okay. You had all these animals. You had people. Okay. And then the animals were confined to small areas. The people were confined. I mean, you guys, I would imagine if you had to stay in your house for the whole weekend, then you'd probably be restless after the weekend. But just think about all those months with your husband and your wife. And but you would, of course, it would be a loving experience. Y'all would get along real good. So just think about that, because again, that's what happened. I mean, again, you have to have perspective. That's what happened. So think about what they had to endure. Does anybody think that this all happened by accident? No. It was all a part of God's plan. Yes. Okay.
After the ark came to rest on the mountains of Ararat, it still wasn't safe to go out. The waters were receding, but the earth was covered in thick mud.
So, again, after all of these months, the ark came to a rest on top of the mountains. But as Noah looked out, you think about when this flood occurred, you think about today when we have flooding, you eventually, after so much rain, you start to have landslides. And, all of that water, things start to mix together, the buildings, the debris, the carcasses of animals. And it formed a thick mud. Now, how do y'all think that mud probably smelled after being? So again, it wasn't safe to leave the ark because the water had receded, but there was mud everywhere. So if you were to leave the ark, animals would have probably what? Died. They would got stuck in that mud. Noah and me and my brothers and our wives would also not been able to navigate the earth. So they waited. And Noah began to think about things that would give indication of how the conditions were on the earth. So he began to send out birds. So he first sent a raven out. The raven flew out all over, but couldn't find a place to land and rest. So the raven came back to the ark. Then a little bit more time passed, and Noah sent a dove out. And the dove went out and came back to the ark with an olive leaf. And that was an indication that things were starting to regenerate on the earth. So that was a good sign. A little bit more time passed, and Noah sent a bird out. And this time, it did not come back to the ark because it found food. It found things to sustain itself with. So then, that was a really good sign that conditions were better on earth. But Noah did not leave the ark until commanded by God. But once he received the command by God that it was safe to leave the leave the ark, then he was able to go back out and take all of the animals and the people that were on the ark to regenerate on the earth.
During the flood, every living creature on the earth perished, including mankind. Noah, his wife, his 3 sons, and their wives, and the animals that had been gathered that represented the new life would now go out and repopulate the earth.
Yes, so in that, again, God knew he wanted to wipe the slate clean and start anew with animals and with me and my wife, my brothers, and their wives to repopulate the earth. And we all didn't go to the same areas. Me and my family repopulated in and around Egypt. And that's where our family multiplied. My brothers and their wives went to other areas and populated those areas. We bore 4 sons. Our 4 sons' names were Cush, Mizraim, Put, and Canaan. Now, some of our sons have famous additional things about them in the Bible. And that's part of your homework. What's one of our sons that's really famous in the Bible? Y'all whispering now, this is smart. Okay, Canaan. Yeah, say it strong. Canaan. Okay, so there's some things that Canaan is known for in the Bible. I want you to take that away and study and come back tomorrow prepared to share what you learned about Canaan as one example of one of our sons that's famous for some things in the Bible. But again, we repopulated. Those were our 4 sons. My other brothers as well had lots of children, and you'll learn more about them as you move around. Any questions? Okay, this is a smart group again. All right. Well, if no question, go for it. Go for it.